Imperial Philion Academy is a renowned institution known as the greatest in the Empire. With outstanding academic staff recruited from all parts of the Empire and supported by the vast resources of the Imperial family, it provides an unmatched level of education. It is often referred to as the birthplace of heroes. Legendary individuals such as General Ade Shan, Sword Saint Schlieffen, and even history's most dreaded criminal, the Winter Witch, have all emerged from its corridors. Lately, graduates from Philion have demonstrated their capabilities in the war, their efforts leaving little doubt about the Academy's standing. However, with recognition also comes notoriety. Its stringent admission criteria and exorbitant tuition fees render it nearly unattainable for common individuals to even contemplate attending. Yet, in spite of all this, his sister had shown such unshakable assurance. Her words rang in Ronan's mind. Now, with a backpack on his shoulder, Ronan strolled toward the academy, his mind racing. Well, I'll let my performance speak for itself. It doesn't matter to me. He cast a sidelong glance and murmured, I didn't actually expect you to really show up, Marcel. Emerging from behind a tree, Marcel entered his line of sight, replying, It's not Marcel, it's Marcel. And she further mentioned that he was the one who threatened that she would be in serious trouble if she didn't come. Ronan casually dismissed her remark, telling her to disregard the minor details. Tonight, both of them would be busy, and he had something to test with her. He dropped his backpack to the floor. Marcel regarded him with confusion, wondering what he meant by test. What was he abruptly planning? Ronan, grinning confidently, indicated himself with a thumbs up, saying it was nothing to worry about. He then asked her to demonstrate her telekinesis abilities on him, using her strongest power. Marcel stepped back, her face drained of color, asking him if he really wanted her to use her telekinesis on him. Ronan reassured her not to be concerned, stating that it wasn't dangerous. He insisted she should follow his instructions. He wouldn't die from it, and she needed to stop hesitating. Reluctantly, Marcel raised her hands. Magic started to swirl around her fingers as she softly spoke. Invisible hand. She stretched out her arms, and waves of telekinetic energy surged toward Ronan. Gradually, his body started to rise off the ground. Hovering in midair, Ronan thought that this was far more impressive than he had anticipated. The feeling of being suspended in midair triggered memories. Although achieving stability and reaching the top still requires more effort, this sensation feels all too familiar. It reminds him of the crucial confrontation with Ahayuti, where telekinesis magic allowed him to engage in aerial combat on equal footing. Telekinesis is an exceptionally rare talent among mages, making someone like Marcel crucial for the ultimate showdown against that scoundrel. From below, Marcel's voice trembled as she pleaded to be let down, stating she couldn't hold on any longer. Ronan drew his sword in midair, urging her to hold on just a bit longer. He only needed to verify one last thing. He assured her that he would manage the landing on his own. Marcel's eyes widened in confusion as she asked what he meant by that. Before she could finish her thought, Ronan swung his sword downward. A sharp arc of energy sliced through the air, and he touched down smoothly on the ground. Marcel stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief, asking if he had just cut through her mana. She inquired about what just happened. He sheathed his sword casually, responding that it was nothing significant and just a trick he had mastered for some time. She inquired about what he meant by a trick, noting that she had never heard of anyone being able to cut through mana. Ronan gently tapped her head with his fist and told her to just let it go since he didn't know how he managed to do it either. His thoughts briefly turned dark as he pondered this peculiar ability of his. It was a puzzle he had set for himself. The reason his sword worked against him had to be connected to this. Shaking off the thought, he grasped the strap of his backpack. He then informed Marcel that she had passed the test and tossed one of the backpacks her way. He instructed her to carry it and follow him, as they had something to complete before the moon set. Marcel clumsily caught the backpack and asked, Okay, but what are we doing this late at night? Ronan smirked, his eyes shining with determination, and told her, It's something that'll become Chapter 1 of the Ronin Saga, the most significant historical record in this world. As they traveled along the path, Marcel looked at Ronan with wide eyes. She questioned if he was really heading to the Philion Academy, where only the Empire's highest elites congregate. She then asked if they were both going there. Ronan sighed, confirming that she was correct and requested that she stop repeating it, as it is annoying him. He asked her if she didn't want to go. She paused and told him that it wasn't the main issue. He was skilled in martial arts, so he would be fine. However, there was nothing she could do. She felt cowardly and timid. Ronan halted his steps and regarded her seriously. He asked if she truly wanted to continue living like this. Estelle froze, her eyes reflecting a blend of confusion and anxiety. He continued, his tone resolute, questioning if she wanted to waste her natural abilities just to deal with some punks. She started to reply, but Ronan interrupted her, calling her actions foolish. Not only was she cowardly and timid, but she was also a crybaby who cried at the slightest thing and always acted like a frightened little scaredy cat. Estelle flinched, feeling the sting of his words. However, Ronan's expression softened slightly as he told her that none of that truly mattered because those were traits she could change starting now. But she could never alter the time she had let slip away. One day, somehow, she would come to regret it. In his thoughts, Ronan reflected on how he felt the same in his previous life. Out loud, he inquired, "Have you changed your mind?" Estelle gazed at him, her heart racing as she realized how much Ronan cares for her. She covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed by her feelings. Ronan turned to leave, telling her that he wouldn't force her to decide, as it was her life to live. She could choose to return if she wished. That would be the end of it. He could move on. But just before he could take another step, Estelle called out, asking him to hold on. She wanted change as well. She would accompany him to Philion and wanted him to instruct her on what she needed to do. Ronan turned back, a rare smile lighting up his face. He remarked that she was acting like a man for the first time. Estelle stood a bit taller, determination sparking in her eyes. Ronan smirked, suggesting they should begin training for what lay ahead. As they continued walking, they eventually reached a shadowy clearing. Behind a thicket of dense bushes, they could spot them, the Luna Goblins. Some were gathered in small groups, while others were sprawled out asleep. Estelle's breath caught as she crouched behind the bush. She asked if this was her first challenge. Ronan grinned with confidence, claiming he had discovered the ideal adversaries to quickly sharpen her skills, the Luna Goblins. He told her she was fortunate, as there was a whole horde of them. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, asking her how they looked. "Don't they seem like complete small fry at first glance?" Estelle looked at the goblins in disbelief, her mind racing. She wondered to herself what he meant. Ronan stood up and cracked his knuckles, asking her if they should begin. The Luna Goblins are a mutant race that inhabit this area. Their distinct yellow skin and unattractive physiques set them apart from regular goblins. But what truly defines them is their fixation on gold and silver. These Luna Goblins delight in ambushing merchants and plundering their valuables, hoarding them for a lavish feast. They only partake in these celebrations during full moon nights, just like this one. Estelle's heart raced in fear as she hid behind the bushes. She inquired if this was the reason they were present tonight. Ronan confirmed, saying that today they would be seizing all that treasure. She paused, admitting she had never heard of them before, nor how these goblins engaged in thievery and celebrations. Curious, she asked Ronan how he was aware of all this. Casual as ever, Ronan pulled out his backpack and mentioned that there are ways to gather such knowledge. However, he thought to himself that he wouldn't reveal he had encountered them in his previous life while aimlessly wandering. Wrapping an arm around Estelle's shoulder, Ronan assured her that while the goblins were still asleep, she could use her telekinesis to move the treasure and drop it into this bag. He claims it's really that straightforward. Estelle's forehead was soaked with perspiration. She replies that it doesn't seem straightforward at all. What if she makes a mistake and the goblins awaken? Then they would be in big trouble. She argues that it's too risky and they should reconsider. Ronan sighed and shot her a stern glance. He told her she was being cowardly. He advised her to pay close attention. If they want to enter Philion Academy, they need two things. First, money, because they must pay Philion's exorbitant fees. Second, practical experience. He explained that while money might be a concern, gaining practical experience is far more crucial. As she knows, Philion hosts nobles who have been educated at an elite level since childhood. He told her if she hopes to compete with Philion Academy students, there is only one way. She must risk her life for genuine combat experience. Ronan glanced at the goblins and stated that they would serve as ideal opponents for this purpose. They present both financial gain and experience. It's like killing two birds with one stone. He then asked her if she still believed he was mistaken or if she had a better plan. She reluctantly replied. He instructed her to begin using her telekinesis power. She proceeded to gather the treasure materials, transferring them into bags one at a time. Ronan glanced at the bag, which was brimming with treasure. It contained coins, beads, daggers, and various other valuables. He told her that the last bag was full, gently patting her head. He remarked that he had always said practical work is the best approach. She beamed and replied that it truly was effective. Initially, he had been quite skeptical. He hadn't anticipated that she would adapt to practical work so swiftly. She surpassed his expectations significantly. He felt fortunate to have found a reliable partner. As he scanned the contents of the bag, he declared that since their bags were full, it was time to move on. She asked, "Is it really over now?" He explained that there was nothing more for them to do, so they should head back before any complications arose. Just as Ronan and Asel were about to leave, they halted upon hearing a voice. Two men sprinted toward them with arrows in their bags, shouting as they chased a bird that was trying to escape them. Ronan and Asel froze momentarily, both looking visibly perplexed. Ronan scowled and muttered, "What are these idiots doing out here so late?" The commotion had alerted the goblins. One of them suddenly sat up. It looked towards the empty treasure chest nearby. The goblin was surprised and asked where all their shiny belongings had gone. Panicking, the goblin yelled that there was a thief. They scanned the area with their sharp eyes and eventually saw two figures, Ronan and Asel. Ronan realized that the situation had become chaotic. Asel let out a loud, frightened scream as Ronan dropped his backpack heavily on the ground. Asel lost her balance and fell to her knees. Ronan sighed deeply and mentioned that he had been wondering why everything had been going so smoothly. Asel's voice shook as she asked, "What should we do now?" suggesting they should drop their bags and run. Ronan pointed out that if they abandoned their bags there, they wouldn't be able to pay their tuition fees at the Philion Academy. Asel argued that wasn't the main concern at the moment. The goblins were getting closer. Asel's voice turned into a panicked cry as she said, "They're here." Ronan tightened his hold on the sword's handle and drew it out completely. His eyes swept over the approaching goblins, and he pondered to himself that a lengthy sword crafted from low-cost steel of this weight and strength, he hoped it would withstand at least 15 blows. Approximately 30 of them were present. 3 goblins charged at them, their clawed hands reaching out towards Ronan's face. Asel screamed in terror, warning Ronan to be careful. Ronan's concentration intensified. He swung his sword in a precise, forceful arc, cutting through the air with accuracy. With one swing, he took down 3 goblins in a single fluid motion. Asel gazed at him, her mouth agape in astonishment. Ronan stood a little straighter, his blade dripping with dark goblin blood. His gaze was fierce, conveying that was the 14th strike. Under the moonlight, crows were ominously cawing in the distance. Ronan forcefully thrust his sword into the head of a goblin and inquired, "Is this the last one?" Asel, still seated on the ground, gazed at him with surprise and pondered. What did she just witness? With a single strike, he swiftly eliminated the 3 goblins charging towards him, as well as the group of goblins following close behind. Ronan briefly vanished before reappearing in an instant. To believe that he had created such a spectacle was astonishing. Whirling around, Ronan, with a stern expression, questioned, "What is she doing? Will she continue to lose her mind like this?" She promptly apologized, unable to offer assistance. Resting his sword on his shoulder, Ronan casually mentioned, "There is no need for apologies," urging her to swiftly pack up so they could return home. Together, they began the journey back, burdened by heavy backpacks weighing down their shoulders. Ronan shifted his shoulder uncomfortably, remarking, "This is truly challenging." He had hoped for a comfortable journey, but knew that nothing comes easy. Asel groaned in concurrence, commenting on the weight of the bag. Ronan grumbled to himself about his achy muscles from battling a few goblins. He believed it was due to his body not being fully developed yet. He planned to begin a rigorous physical training regimen once he returned home. As they continued on, Asel inquired about the source of the loud screeching they had heard earlier. He sharply replied that he had no clue. He couldn't understand how someone could scream so loudly in the moonlight, suggesting they may have lost their mind. Ronan assured Asel that once they discovered who it was, he would ensure they paid for causing such distress. Suddenly, an arrow flew through the air from behind them, heading straight for Asel. She caught sight of it out of the corner of her eye and spun around in alarm. In a quick motion, Ronan caught the arrow just inches away from her, questioning the reason behind the attack. Asel screamed, demanding to know where the arrow had come from. Ronan cautiously scanned their surroundings, suggesting the forest might be haunted due to the presence of so many troublemakers. Two men appeared ahead of them, one with a bow and the other wielding a knife. Ronan squinted at them and asked for their identities. He then broke the arrow in half. The man continued speaking awkwardly, apologizing for the misunderstanding. As a noise came from the distance, the men mistook Ronan and Asel for monsters. Turning to his partner, the man admitted they had almost killed them. Ronan noticed a man eyeing their bags and warned them to stop with their lies, noting their suspicious behavior. This caused the men to freeze in place. Ronan insisted they cease their bad acting and simply answer his question. The man with the bow chuckled nervously, admitting they had forgotten to introduce themselves. The other man, holding a knife, smirked and identified themselves as Caraballo. Suddenly, he leaped towards Ronan with his blade. Ronan reacted quickly, seizing the man's arm, twisting it, and delivering a punch to his chin. The man spat out blood as he stumbled backward. The other man then attacked with a dagger, but Asel used her telekinetic power to immobilize him. Frozen in place, the man stuttered that he couldn't move. Ronan gave Asel a grateful glance before swiftly taking the dagger from the man's frozen hand. After that, he cut his body into pieces. Asel was shocked and asked if he had killed the person. Ronan wiped a blood stain from his face and coldly stated that he couldn't spare someone who tried to kill him. He also mentioned that these guys were part of the Caraballo group. Asel inquired about Caraballo, and Ronan explained that they were the most notorious poaching group in the Empire, involved in human trafficking and various criminal activities. He walked over to the fallen man, grabbed his dagger firmly, and stabbed him without hesitation, claiming that if it weren't for him, he would have been killed and had his organs stolen. Ronan added that keeping such people alive knowing their deeds was a crime. He urged Asel to gather her belongings so they could leave. Nearby, a bag belonging to the two men had fallen to the ground, and as they prepared to leave, one of the bags started moving. Ronan became suspicious and demanded to know why the bag was moving. Asel, still cautious, questioned why these people were carrying such items. They cautiously approached the moving bag. Ronan kneeled down, and working together, they started untying the rope that held the top closed. Asel wondered if they were carrying the animals they had hunted. Ronan responded that they would only know once they had opened it. Eventually, the rope became loose, and the package cracked open a bit. Peering out were two shimmering blue eyes. A bird emerged from within, fluttering its wings. They both glanced up. Ronan, baffled, inquired about the bird's appearance. Ronan observed the bird and asked if it was a chicken head with blue feathers. Asel's eyes widened in excitement as she exclaimed that it was her first time seeing this blue bird. He mentioned that it was his first time seeing it as well. Upon noticing the shackles on the bird's claws, Ronan suspected that the bird may have been trapped by the Caraballo. He explained that these shackles are used by Caraballo for poaching and can impede mana flow and limit movement. Ronan pondered the situation and commented that he had heard of people using similar shackles when trying to capture elusive species. He speculated that the blue bird might be a rare one. However, suddenly behind the blue bird, a glowing yellow ring-like structure appeared, and a voice declared that it had finally connected. Asel gasped in fear and rushed towards Ronan, trying to hug him while exclaiming that the bird could speak. Ronan brushed her off with an irritated expression and remarked that she was overreacting, as it was just a communication magic spell. Ronan considered how quickly the connection was established upon the bird's emergence from the bag, leading him to believe that the bag must have a function that blocks mana. He inquired aloud if the person speaking is the owner of the blue bird. The bird confirmed it and identified himself as Baron. Baron mentioned that he studies rare species in the imperial capital and is the guardian of the dream bird Marps. He explained that he had been trying to connect with Marps but failed, so he was going to report to the police, but now he is relieved that Marps is safe. Baron then asked them who they are. Ronan smirked and replied that they are just kind passers-by. Ronan informed him that they had a confrontation with poachers who had kidnapped the bird. He paused momentarily before stating that the details were too gruesome to narrate, but ultimately, they were able to rescue the bird. Baron speculated that Caraballo might be behind it, but thanked them and inquired how he could repay their kindness. Eselle's face brightened as she told Baron not to worry about it, and asked how they could return the bird, as it was struggling due to the restraints. Ronan inquired whether the bird would fly away on its own once they set it free. The voice confirmed that it would, mentioning the dreambird's strong homing instinct. Ronan drew his sword confidently, lifting it up to cut through the shackles with a precise strike. As the pieces fell to the ground, he instructed the bird to return home. The bird gazed at Ronan with large, innocent eyes. Ronan reassured the bird not to be afraid like that again. In response, the bird turned around, showing its back to Ronan. Puzzled, Ronan questioned if the bird was displaying its buttocks. The owner's voice explained that the bird wanted Ronan to pluck a feather before departing, indicating a desire to meet him again in the future. Baron clarified that the dreambird's plucked feathers act as a compass, pointing towards the bird even after being removed. Ronan carefully plucked a feather as requested. Baron then expressed his willingness to meet Ronan in the capital one day, intending to repay him for his kind gesture. The bird flew away rapidly, leaving Ronan visibly startled at its speed. Eselle, observing Ronan's hand, inquired about what he was holding. Ronan mentioned that it felt warm. Upon closer inspection, his expression twisted in shock as he exclaimed, "What is this?" A few days later, a jewel master marveled at a gem and commended the person who crafted it. He offered 20 gold coins for the gem. Ronan and Eselle revealed all the treasure they had stolen from the goblins. The jewel master praised the quality of their items and expressed his eagerness to do business with them. Ronan grinned with satisfaction and remarked, "Finally, someone worth dealing with." Despite being labeled as scammers by other merchants, they eventually found one willing to pay a fair price. Ronan noted that their exploration of the area was worthwhile. The man shook hands with Ronan, chuckled, and expressed his gratitude for the positive remarks. He then asked if they had anything else to sell. Ronan put his hand into his pocket and took out a galaxy-colored egg-shaped item, expressing that he has no intention of selling it, but simply wants to identify it. It was the object that the bird had laid on his hand, which he initially mistook for feces but later discovered was not. After tossing the object against a rock and seeing how tough it was, Ronan speculated that it might be a valuable byproduct of a rare species, possibly a valuable treasure. The man observed the egg-like item with uncertainty, while Ronan's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. He admitted that he was unsure of what it was and suggested seeking expert advice. Ronan returned the object to his pocket, reiterating his lack of interest in selling it, but expressing curiosity about its nature. Eselle, standing nearby, jokingly claimed that it was just a hardened piece of bird droppings, but Ronan ignored her and asked the man if he also sold books about Philion. The man raised an eyebrow and inquired if they were discussing the academy. Ronan agreed, mentioning that they were hoping to take the entrance exam at Philion but lacked sufficient information. The man smiled knowingly, revealing that his daughter was also applying to Philion and could possibly assist them. A girl steps in that moment, inquiring about their presence. The man then introduced her as his daughter Maria. Maria, who had long hair and striking green eyes, caught Ronan's attention. The man instructed Maria to greet Ronan and Eselle, acknowledging them as special guests who had just made a significant deal with them. Maria casually remarked about their appearance, causing the man to scold her for her rude comment. He apologized to Ronan and Eselle explaining that Maria had grown up in a merchant troupe and had a sharp tongue. Estelle reassured the man that it was not a problem. However, when she looked at Ronan, she speculated that he might have. Ronan ignored her and approached Maria. He inquired if she was truly Maria, to which Maria responded with a raised eyebrow, questioning his statement. Ronan persisted, mentioning Maria having son as her middle name, to which Maria confirmed. She asked how he knew that, and Ronan, looking at her intently, found it peculiar that they looked alike while the person he knew was different. After a brief pause, he asked Maria to come closer, indicating he had another question. Maria hesitated, inquiring about what he wanted to say. Ronan leaned in close to her ear and questioned if she also has that dangling thing down there. Maria looked at Ronan with a shocked expression and asked what nonsense he was talking about. She then looked down and wondered if she really had that thing. Ronan stated that regardless of what she thought, he believed she had one. He also mentioned that he believed the man must have a child whom he didn't know about. Maria became angry, slapped Ronan's face, and told him to be quiet. Ronan was surprised by the slap and remembered having experienced similar slaps before. He was certain that she was truly Count Maria. Ronan recalled that when he was a disciplinary soldier in Armeline, Maria's son was in charge of supplies. He described her as an efficient worker with a very friendly personality that allowed her to get along well with everyone. However, whenever the topic of inappropriate conversations arose, she would become angry and slap the individuals involved. Ronan found this habit of hers curious and intended to ask her about it the next time they met. Unfortunately, Maria died before he had the chance. Ronan was surprised to learn the reason in such an unexpected place, because Maria was a woman. Maria angrily questioned why he was laughing, insisting that one slap was not sufficient. She attempted to slap him again, but before she could, he punched her in the head and told her to stop. Maria winced in pain as Ronan remarked that she was getting carried away after he allowed her to hit him once. He explained that he had accepted the first slap because he was at fault but would not tolerate another. In response, Maria forcefully struck her head with his chin. They began fighting. The man and Aseel were shocked by the scene and rushed to stop the fight. Later, Aseel was shocked and puzzled by their behavior outside, observing that they were fighting as though they intended to kill each other. Maria inquired about the items Ronan had purchased, to which he confirmed and asked her to check their quality. Ronan stated that if she doesn't like these items, he will purchase other items instead. Maria inspected the 3 swords and magic item. Maria questioned why he was carrying 3 swords since they are heavy. Ronan explained that the extra swords were for emergencies, as he tends to be rough with them. Ronan inquired about her opinion on the items, to which she replied that they were decent, but the black iron swords stood out as the best. She noted that black iron swords are known for their durability and are favored by many famous knights. Maria reassured Ronan that his swords were sturdy and unlikely to break soon. Ronan murmured to himself that the black iron sword was his favorite in his previous life. Maria mentioned that the magic stuff contained a powerful magical stone, but she assumed Ronan was not interested in it. She then asked Aseel if she is the adorable mage he had mentioned, to which Aseel shyly nodded. Maria then inquired about the kind of magic Aseel could use, causing Aseel to become flustered and reveal that she can use telekinesis magic. Maria complimented the magic, stating that it was impressive and could potentially help Aseel obtain a scholarship. Aseel shyly thanked Maria for the compliment. Maria then turned to Ronan and pointed out that the real issue lay with them, mentioning the technique they would showcase during the practical exam. Ronan was surprised and asked about the technique Maria was referring to. Maria explained that in order to be admitted to Philion, they had to pass a practical exam where they would have to demonstrate their skills in front of the masters. She added that while the written test was challenging, it was not as tough as the practical exam, which required strong performance to pass. Ronan expressed his belief that swordsmen needed to excel in swordsmanship to gain admission and asked Maria what aspiring students typically showcase during the practical exam. Maria replied that nobles displayed secret family techniques, while martial arts candidates showcased their mana combat techniques. Ronan paused, wondering how a swordsman could use mana without being a mage. Maria explained that mana induction is a common practice for aspiring students and asked if he has been consistently practicing it. Ronan was surprised by this new information. Maria raised her voice, asking him not to deny his lack of knowledge about mana induction. Ronan then inquired if mana induction is similar to using aura. Maria was shocked by his answer and covered her face in sadness. Ronan mentioned that it's understandable not to be familiar with mana induction as it is not widely known. Angered, Maria stood up and instructed Ronan to follow her. She took 2 swords from the table, stating that she was borrowing them temporarily because her own sword was being repaired at the smith shop. Ronan yelled at her, concerned that she would damage his swords, but she reassured him not to worry. She told him to stop complaining and follow her, as she had a special lesson for him. Outside, Maria explained that mana is a natural energy that is the essence of all living things and exists throughout the world. It is not something that can be easily mastered. She emphasized that in order to use mana, one must first connect with and understand their own mana. Only then they would be able to perform mana induction. She explains that there are certain factors such as training and talent that play a role in this endeavor. However, these abilities can usually be acquired within a year of training. Students aspiring to attend Filion should surpass this stage and be able to utilize their own mana before applying. She mentions that he is not familiar with the difference between mana and aura, but still wishes to enroll in Filion Academy. She clarifies that aura is actually a type of mana, but the distinction between the two is like earth and heaven. She elaborates that aura is a unique power that even exceptionally gifted individuals may struggle to attain after at least a decade of relentless hard work. She asked if he understands it, and Ronan confirms that he does. Ronan recalls encountering numerous individuals claiming to be aura users in battle. Initially appearing powerful and impressive, they all proved to be the same once defeated. Ronan suggests to Maria that they put theory into practice. Maria suggests that he will grasp the concept better through physical experience rather than just theory. Ronan underestimates Maria as he perceives her as just a little girl. She quickly moved towards Ronan, who was standing still with his sword resting on his shoulder. His gaze was fixed on her. As she launched her attack with 2 swords, Ronan successfully blocked her attack. Maria's eyes were intense and threatening as she attacked him. Maria attacked Ronan with her swords, but Ronan blocked the attack with his own sword. He then pushed her away using his sword. Ronan was surprised by Maria's strength, considering her young age, and marveled at how much power she could wield with 2 swords. He speculated that this must be the mana combat technique she had mentioned earlier. Similarly, Maria was also surprised when Ronan dodged her attack. She had hoped to defeat him in a single blow to showcase the power of mana and make him give up on the test. She believed it would be better for Ronan to surrender now rather than facing humiliation at the test site. However, it was Maria who found herself pushed back by Ronan's sword. She was impressed by his skills even without using mana. Ronan then inquired what she is thinking before pushing her back once more. With a deadly expression, he raised his sword as if to strike her, but instead he brought it down on the ground with such force that it startled Maria. Though she was pushed back by the impact, Maria managed to push through and overcome it. Maria smiled and noted that he was not normal at all. Ronan smiled back and agreed that he thought the same about her. Ronan mentioned that aside from mana, she had talent in using swords but was lacking in finding the center of balance. He then turned around to leave, commenting that she could improve a lot if she fixed that. However, Maria shouted at him, asking where he was going. She warned him not to think he had defeated her. Ronan walked away, stating that he didn't care. Maria's sword got cracks during the fight and eventually broke into pieces. Maria was shocked to see her sword breaking in her hands and asked when it happened. Ronan turned around and instructed her to have the swords cost ready. Maria tried to speak, but was interrupted as Acel touched her shoulder and praised her that she did well. Acel then ran towards Ronan, who urges her to hurry up as he was getting hungry. Maria stood there in shock, unable to understand what had just happened. The following day, Ronan went to the caravan and said he was there to collect the sword's cost. Maria revealed something to them, and they were shocked to see it. She not only paid for his sword, but also gave them books about Philion. Maria smiled and mentioned that she thought they needed these books since the test was in a month. Ronan commented on why she was giving them all this. Drawing his sword from the sheath, Ronan asked if she was trying to cheat him, but Maria assured him that she just came to like them. Laughing, Maria said she wanted to help them get admission and also wanted to teach them, but they had to move due to a trade. She warned Ronan that if he couldn't pass the test with her help, she wouldn't let him off easily. Ronan promised to do his best and told her to focus on herself too. Maria waved at them, saying she would meet them at the imperial capital on the test day. Asel waved back, while Ronan remained silent. Ronan then looked at his hand and realized he needed to train his weak body and study for the test. His life back at home was ordinary, but somewhat different. He ate until he felt full, building up his calories to hunt monsters in the village and improve his stamina and physical adaptability. He successfully managed to eliminate all the monsters in the village. In addition to his physical training, he also dedicated himself to studying, something he never thought he would do as a penal soldier. Despite uncertainty about the outcome, he gave his best effort. After a month, Ronan and Asel were standing outside the Philion Academy. Asel marveled at its beauty, describing Philion as a masterpiece in itself. Ronan angrily questioned Asel about why she was standing in the middle of the road. He urged to go inside as they were going to be late for the test. Asel apologized and Ronan told her to stop making such faces. Asel commented on how Ronan had grown bigger in just a month. Hearing this, Ronan punched her head and told her to stop talking nonsense and start walking. Asel held her head in pain, while Ronan thought if Sword Saint Shelopin would also be present. He was a talented swordsman known as the strongest in the Empire. Since they both were of the same age, Ronan hoped to meet him during the test. Ronan expressed that it didn't bother him. Asel interrupted his thoughts and asked if he had that. Ronan asked what she is talking about. Asel mentions that she is referring to the feather that he had plucked from the dream bird. Ronan shows the feather and explains that Baron mentioned he lived in the imperial capital, so Ronan intends to meet him after the test. The feather surprises Ronan by pointing towards something specific. Glancing towards the academy, Ronan observes that the feather is indicating the top floor. On the top floor, Baron expresses that he finds his job as a professor challenging, and he questions the dream bird about returning to being an adventurer. The bird responds in some way to his query. He asks the bird if it supports him in giving his best effort. He promises to do his best to show his gratitude to her rescuer. He decides to open the window for some fresh air, but to his surprise, Ronan is already there and remarks that he didn't knock, but the window opened on its own. Both are startled to see him there. Baron, panicked, asked for their identities, shocked at how they managed to come through the window. Ronan mentioned that he thought his eardrums were about to explode from Baron's roar, and Asel told Ronan that's why he had advised him to use the stairs. Angrily, Baron questioned if they were there to kidnap the dream bird. Ronan showed him the feather he had taken from the dream bird. Baron was somewhat relieved to see the feather and asked if they were the ones who saved the dream bird. The scene then shifted to a few moments later, where Baron expressed embarrassment for his initial reaction. They were all seated together, and Baron asked Ronan to forget what had happened earlier. Ronan mentioned that he had told Baron it was okay, but Baron continued to act that way. Ronan informed Baron that Asel was responsible for the situation, as she had instructed him to climb and enter through the window, while Asel was surprised by Ronan's words and told him that he was the one who had suggested climbing up through the window. Upon hearing this, Ronan grasped her face tightly and instructed her to remain quiet. Ronan expressed his surprise to Baron about the rarity of Whirlions among beastmen. But Baron is a professor at Philion Academy and owns a dream bird. Baron laughs as he found it amusing that the individuals who rescued his dream bird were actually applicants. He mentioned that he would have prepared an invitation for them if he had known about their visit or offered assistance if they were unsuccessful in the test. Ronan mentioned to Baron that he had a question, as time was limited. He then showed Baron the object that the dream bird had laid on his hand before departing and asked what it is. Baron identified the item as a dream bird egg, which he held in astonishment. Ronan wondered why Baron was so surprised, noting that it was just a regular bird egg. Baron explained that it was no ordinary egg, but one belonging to a dream bird. Baron admitted that he was unsure of what would hatch from the egg, leading Ronan to inquire what he is trying to say. Baron explained that although it was natural for a bird to hatch from an egg, the process was different for Dreambird's egg. Baron explains that dream birds lay eggs by absorbing the unique mana from their environment or the objects surrounding them. Baron adds that a firebird, covered in flames, will be born from the egg if it is conceived in a lava field. Baron also explains that if a dream bird is born in a monster nest, it may take on the form of a monster instead of a traditional dream bird. Baron then tells Ronan that analyzing the mana within the egg can help predict the appearance of the dream bird that will hatch from it. Upon examining the egg closely, Baron notes that it contains numerous mana flows, making it difficult to determine what will emerge from it. Ronan is surprised and finds the egg mysterious. Baron expresses his desire for Ronan to care for the egg. Ronan informed Baron that he didn't mind, but he believed that the egg was a precious item. Baron agreed, explaining that dream birds only lay eggs once in their lifetime. Observing the dream bird, Baron suggested that if she had laid it in Ronan's hands, it must be meant for him, instructing Ronan to take good care of it. Ronan promised to look after the egg carefully, expressing his curiosity about what would hatch from it. Standing up, Ronan mentioned that they needed to leave as they were running late for their test, but Baron asked them to wait for a moment. Turning back, Baron expressed his desire to give something in return to the Dreambird's savior, handing Ronan a letter and explaining that it would assist him in hatching the egg. The scene then shifted to some time later at the main building of Galilian Castle, where inside the martial arts test waiting room, all the applicants were seated. The door opened, and a man emerged, announcing that the test for applicant 111 had concluded. He then called for applicant 112 to enter the room, and the applicant responded affirmatively before entering. Ronan mentions that it is now his turn. He informs Maria that these tests are quite slow, to which Maria responds that tests tend to be like that. Ronan then inquires if Maria is comfortable in dresses like the one she is wearing, to which Maria explains that since Philion is a social gathering place for nobles, she needs to pay extra attention to her attire. Maria points out that some nobles could potentially become her clients, so she cannot afford to look sloppy. Ronan comments that she is putting in a lot of effort. Maria suggests that it would be nice if a cell could join them, but Ronan explains that they cannot do anything as the testing area for magic is different. Suddenly, the door opens again, and the man in 112 applicant came out, but the applicant was looking unhappy with his performance. The man then calls applicant 113 to come inside. Ronan stands up, realizing it is his turn, and Maria reassures him not to be nervous. She promises to not take it lightly if he fails, and Ronan expresses his gratitude for her support. Just before entering the test site, Ronan looks back at Maria with a determined expression and tells her he will be back shortly. Once Ronan entered the room, he noticed the individuals in front of him and recognized them as the professors of Philion. The elderly man seated in the center was Headmaster Archmage Kravakritir. Sitting beside him was the swordsmanship instructor and former Sword Saint Navaros, whose presence overwhelmed Ronan as he had never experienced such vitality before. Ronan respectfully bowed to the professors and introduced himself, to which Krava responded warmly. Krava then requested that Ronan demonstrate his skills on a magical engineering doll. Drawing his sword, Ronan admitted that he had little to showcase except for a swift slash, which he believed would suffice against the doll. Krava seemed taken aback by his answer. The man next to Krava remarked to his companion that there was always someone making bold claims, suggesting that Ronan may be unfamiliar with the doll's capabilities as he hailed from a distant village. He explained that the doll possessed defensive capabilities strong enough to endure even powerful auras and possessed rapid self-healing abilities. The man pointed out that even the esteemed Sword Saint Shelopin had only managed to leave sword marks on the doll, prompting him to question what Ronan planned to demonstrate. His companion simply shrugged, admitting he was unsure. Krava angrily reprimanded them for making jokes, telling them he could hear them. He expressed concern about the boy potentially being intimidated. As Ronan approached the doll, Krava felt uneasy, struggling to understand what was happening. Krava marveled at Ronan's strength, wondering how someone so young could possess such power. Suddenly, Ronan drew his sword and struck the doll with full force, leaving Navarros in shock. After sheathing his sword, Ronan indicated that this was all he could demonstrate. The man who had mocked him was astonished, admitting he never expected Ronan to be able to slash the doll in one swift motion, while the other man found it difficult to assess the situation. Turning to Krava, the man inquired about his thoughts, but Krava remained stunned. Meanwhile, Navarros stood up and rushed towards Ronan, pointing her sword at his neck. Ronan, surprised, commented on her actions, prompting Navarros to question where he had learned his sword techniques. Ronan inquired about the meaning behind her words, and Navarros responded by suggesting she could ask him again. She then questioned how Ronan had acquired his sword skills, noting his impressive ability. Ronan marveled at her skill, remarking on the difficulty of drawing a sword quickly, but Navarros effortlessly managed to swing it 3 times. Navarros pointed out Ronan's cheeky sword movements, mentioning that she had noticed it. She teased Ronan for thinking she would not catch on, leaving him speechless. Navarros observed that Ronan had hesitated during his last crosscut, as if he was unsure whether she could see his sword. She hinted that Ronan seemed to have forgotten his origins, much to the surprise of Krava, who was watching in silence. The professors appeared unsettled, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. Ronan reassured himself that the situation was simply a misunderstanding, as he had controlled his power during the last slice to prevent the sword from breaking. However, he doubted that Navarros would not believe him if he explained it to her. Navarros then turned around, putting away her sword, and informed Ronan that she will remember him. She looked back at Ronan with a stern expression, stating that she will personally teach him a lesson. Returning to her seat, Krava asked her about her conversation with Ronan, but she remained silent. Krava wondered if she had already decided to take Ronan as her student. Shifting his focus to Ronan, Krava praised his efforts and suggested concluding the exam with a common question they posed to all candidates. Krava inquired about what Ronan hoped to learn at Philion Academy. After pondering for a moment, Ronan confidently expressed his desire to learn how to live without regrets. Krava was surprised by Ronan's response, but allowed him to leave. As Ronan exited, Krava smiled and pondered how to teach him this, while the theory professor was shocked and asked what had transpired between Krava and Navarros, speculating that the boy may have used a powerful deception. The head of the magical engineering doll suddenly starts to fall, leaving the theory professors in shock. Everyone was astonished by this unexpected turn of events. Meanwhile, Ronan pondered his recent encounter with Navarros and recognized the sword technique she used as Numen's sword technique. He couldn't help but wonder if he, in his previous life, would have been able to emerge victorious. Despite his confidence in his abilities and experience, facing Navarros made Ronan realize he still had much to learn. However, he remained positive and reaffirmed his decision to join Philion, acknowledging that there would be plenty for him to learn in the future. Ronan expressed confidence in his preparation for the upcoming written test, believing he would handle it easily due to his hard work. After the test, Ronan was left stunned as he found it to be difficult and felt like it was a waste. He confided in Maria about his frustration, comparing the test to the challenges in his life. Maria informed Asel that Ronan only managed to complete half of the test, but she had advised him to study all the books in the bag. Asel informs Maria that Ronan decided to focus on studying the first item he took out, setting the rest aside, and ultimately forgetting the entire bag because of his intense concentration. Asel takes responsibility, feeling she should have checked if Ronan needed help, to which Maria jokingly calls Ronan an idiot. Maria then reassures Ronan that his practical test performance was exceptional, so he shouldn't worry. Suddenly, a light appears from the building, signaling the beginning of the result announcement. An applicant excitedly announces that the results are being revealed, and a list materializes outside the building. Asel questions if it's the list of successful candidates, and Maria remarks that it arrived sooner than anticipated. The results show that Asel scored 12 in the practical exam and 1 in the written test, while Maria scored 9 in both practical and written tests. They exchange surprised glances before joyfully embracing each other, realizing they both passed the test. Maria excitedly informs Asel that she got a score of 1 in the written test. She then gently pats Estelle on the head and expresses her joy, to which Estelle said that she is just lucky. Maria then turns to Ronan and inquires about his results. Unfortunately, Ronan sadly reveals that his name is not on the list of successful candidates. Maria reassures Ronan that this must be a mistake. She then urges Ronan to double-check by physically opening his eyes and looking again, but Ronan insists that he has already searched thoroughly. Suddenly, a fire emerges from the sky, causing everyone to gasp in surprise. Ronan asks Maria for an explanation, and she reveals that it is the grand celebratory firework display for the top performers in each subject. A majestic bird, known as the Glory Phoenix, emerges from the flames, spreading its wings. Ronan watches as the bird emits a fiery blast towards him. However, the fire miraculously dissipates before reaching him. In the flames, a message appears stating that Ronan has secured second position in the test, with a score of 1 in the practical test and 57-12 in the written test. Ronan and the others were somewhat shocked at first, but then Maria and Estelle hugged Ronan, exclaiming that he had gotten second place in the test. Maria informed Ronan that despite his poor performance in the written test, he was still able to secure second place due to his outstanding performance in the practical test. Maria praised Ronan as a genius, while Estelle remarked that he was adept at reading people. Ronan then realized that by scoring 1 in the practical test, he had surpassed Sword Saint Shelepin. Lost in his thoughts, Ronan was approached by a guy who inquired if he was the one who had scored 1 in this year's practical test, making Ronan wonder if this was how they were meeting. The guy turned out to be none other than Sword Saint Shelepin. A male candidate loudly declares that it's Sword Saint Shelepin, while the female candidate expresses surprise at meeting the Empire rising star. Maria considers that Shelepin may have some business with Ronan, and Estelle comments on how intimidating Shelepin is. Ronan believes the situation has become complicated and notes that Shelepin has always had the same personality. Ronan thinks that Shelepin cannot tolerate anyone with better sword skills due to his strong desire to win. Ronan feels the need to defuse the situation and informs Shelepin that he is not ranked 1. Shelepin accuses Ronan of lying and demands proof, prompting Ronan to ask him to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Without hesitation, Shelepin unsheathes his sword and attacks Ronan, who also draws his sword and defends himself. Maria and Estelle are surprised by the confrontation. Shelepin then challenges Ronan, stating that if he wasn't ranked 1, he wouldn't have been able to block the attack. The other candidates are shocked by the altercation. Shelepin then urges Ronan to showcase the skills that have surpassed him. Ronan pulled back his sword and informed Shelepin that he would demonstrate his skills. Then he swung his sword down towards the ground, releasing a powerful force that headed straight for Shelepin. Shelepin stood still, bewildered by the force emanating from Ronan's sword. In response, Shelepin swiftly raised his sword in the air, generating a force that blocked Ronan's attack. Ronan asked Shelepin if that was what he wanted, and if he was satisfied. After a brief pause, Shelepin complimented Ronan on his sword technique, which had earned him extra points. Shelepin then launched another attack on Ronan, claiming that his sword skills were not sufficient to defeat him. Ronan was surprised and accused Shelepin of being reckless, but Shelepin urged Ronan to reveal everything he was hiding. Shelepin struck his sword once more, releasing a strong force that caught Ronan off guard. Ronan believed Shelepin was attacking him with lethal intent, which was why he had been avoiding him. Ronan speculated on whether Shelepin would use his aura, knowing it would pose a challenge for him. He also pondered how Shelepin's single slash could create a storm, referring to his formidable aura as the Storm Sword, making it nearly impossible for Ronan to contend with Shelepin. Shelepin then started attacking again, but Ronan turned around and began to flee. Shelepin then accused Ronan of trying to escape during a fight. In pursuit, Shelepin charged towards Ronan, but Ronan positioned Estelle in between them. Surprised, Estelle questioned why Ronan had placed her in the middle. Shelepin yelled at Ronan, calling him a coward for using a woman as a shield. Despite Estelle's objections, Ronan, with a sly grin, remarked that she still had her feisty spirit even in the face of danger. Seizing the moment, Ronan struck Shelepin in the face, causing him pain. Ronan then turned to Maria, signaling that it was time to escape. They all fled the scene while Shelopin was left kneeling, nursing his broken nose. Suddenly, a man emerged from the crowd and inquired about the commotion. Observing Shelopin, the man asked him what had happened and if he was all right, demanding to know who had harmed him. The man instructed Shelopin to identify the perpetrators so that his guard could take action, but Shelopin insisted that the guard maintain a low profile, as he was present as an applicant and not a member of a noble family. Shelopin reassures the guard that there is no cause for concern, as it was just a friendly sparring match. He confidently tells the guard that he can handle the situation. Shelopin's attention then turns to his sword, where he is surprised to discover a crack on it, considering it was crafted from high-grade mithril. Shelopin acknowledges Ronan's impressive skills, but is intrigued by what Ronan could have done to his sword. With a sly smirk, Shelopin mentions that he will remember Ronan's abilities. The scene transitions to the following day near Shemo Forest Island, where Ronan and Asel are strolling together, with Ronan clutching a paper and quietly indicating that they are in the right location. Asel inquires about the previous day's altercation, but Ronan advises her not to worry. Asel notes that Shelopin is the heir to the esteemed Duke Grangsia family, second only to the royal family, and that Ronan has broken his nose. She asks Ronan what they will do if Shelopin seeks revenge, to which Ronan responds that there is no need for concern, as Shelopin, despite his obsession with swords, is actually a decent person. Ronan explains that Shelopin values trust and principles, and prioritizes defending the vulnerable. In Ronan's opinion, Shelopin embodies the qualities of an honorable nobleman perfectly. Ronan explained that the previous day's events were just a friendly sparring match, or else they would have been in jail. He then directed Asel to look ahead, as they had reached the location where Professor Barron had mentioned Finardo Sam. According to Ronan, Finardo Sam referred to a pool of mana that roamed the world, but gathered in one place for unknown reasons. He pointed out that the mana ley lines caused mana to seep into nearby objects, transforming them into magical items. Ronan marveled at the pool's immense value and speculated that people would try to keep it for themselves. Despite his thoughts, Professor Barron had only shared this information with them as a side note. Ronan inquired about Asel's feelings, to which she replied that she had never experienced such a strong presence of mana before. She noted that near the pool, she could easily cast more powerful spells. Asel also observed that the egg in Ronan's pocket behaved differently near the pool, absorbing mana at a rapid rate due to the abundance of mana in the pool. Ronan mentions that he is unaware of the situation and assumed Maria would enjoy the place if she were with them. Asel notes that there is something peculiar going on, prompting Ronan to ask for clarification. Asel reveals that Professor Barron informed them that this location is rich in mana and magical creatures often build nests there. She also states that this area is favorable for living, even for regular animals. Asel then points out to Ronan that they haven't heard any animal sounds in the vicinity. Ronan responds by admitting that he may have been too relaxed about the situation. He stands up and informs Asel that things have become more complicated, a common occurrence wherever they go. Asel inquires about Ronan's intention, to which he replies by telling her to prepare as he can sense the smell of blood. Asel looked shocked and asked Ronan to clarify his statement. Ronan explained to Asel that someone had arrived before them. Suddenly, men wearing wolf masks appeared in the distance, aiming their bows at Ronan and Asel. The men launched arrows towards them, but Ronan quickly reacted by drawing his sword and slicing the arrows in half with one swift motion. Intrigued by the arrows, Ronan recognized them from his past at the penal soldiers' camp. A soldier had shown him those arrows before, highlighting their powerful ability to penetrate even orc skulls. The soldier offered Ronan a chance to join their organization and use the arrows, but Ronan refused, revealing that he had been caught poaching with those arrows before. Ronan was informed by the soldier that he would need to become an elite member of their group and complete 100 poaching missions in order to use the special arrows. The soldier referred to their organization as the Cariballo's hunting dogs. Ronan is surprised to find out that these men are also the Cariballo hunting dogs. He quickly instructs Asel to find a hiding spot in case they attack again. Ronan then approaches the men, mentioning that he has some unfinished business with them. One of the men is astonished as Ronin effortlessly blocks their attack with a single sword strike. As Ronin gets closer, the man orders his companions to surround him. Impressed by the man's quick thinking, Ronin decides to try a different approach and informs the men that he is actually an ally. The man questions Ronin about his identity, leading Ronin to reveal that he is Ahayuti, the youngest hunting dog from the Damas chapter. The men are surprised and doubtful, asking for confirmation about his role as a hunting dog. Despite their skepticism, Ronin urges them to confirm from the wolf of the chapter if they doubt his claim. Furthermore, he advises the man not to dismiss others' abilities just because he finds something impossible. This statement sparks anger in the man, who grabs Ronin by the shirt and accuses him of insulting him. Ronin informs the man that he has a quick temper and warns him that things typically don't end well for individuals like him. A henchman then taps the man on the shoulder and advises him to relax and consider the situation. The henchman questions how Ronin, who is not a hunting dog, knows so much about the Cariballo's hierarchy and chapters, suggesting the man should consult the captain before taking any action against Ronin to avoid conflict with the Damas chapter in the future. Just then, a strong man enters the scene and inquires about the commotion. This man, named Vume, is known as the Wolf of the Demire chapter. The man lets go of Ronin and explains to Vume that he has arrived at the perfect moment. Approaching Vume, the man claims that Ronin has proclaimed himself as a hunting dog. Ronin grins mischievously and realizes they are all here now. Vume questions Ronin if he is Ahayuti from the Damas chapter, to which Ronin affirms. Vume then questions Ronin's presence in the territory allocated to the Demire chapter, according to a previous declaration. Ronin chuckled and said he wasn't familiar with that since he wasn't Ahayuti. Vume was confused by this response. Suddenly, Ronin unsheathed his sword and swiftly slashed all of the goons in half. He explained to Vume that Ahayuti was someone he despised more than anyone else. With a grin, Ronin approached Vume with his sword raised, ready to strike, and remarked that the name Ahayuti suited a contemptible poacher. Without hesitation, Ronin swung his sword at Vume's throat, beheading him. The man holding a knife was shocked by the gruesome scene. Ronin reminded the man that he had warned him things wouldn't end well. The man's fingers were severed, causing the knife to slip from his grasp. He fell to his knees in agony as Ronin mocked him for acting like a child. Ronin tossed a piece of paper at the man and instructed him to write down the location of every chapter he knew on the back. The man, writhing in pain, asked why. Ronin, with a menacing smile, threatened to kill him if he refused. The man informed Ronin that he would write down all the information he had, mentioning that he didn't have anything to create a map with. Ronin suggested using his own blood to draw. Sometime later, Ronin was seated on a rock observing the drawing on the paper and complimented the man on his work. The man grinned and inquired if this meant Ronin would let him go. Suddenly, Ronin drew his sword and swiftly split the man in half, his face reflecting a fierce and deadly expression as he replied with a firm no.